You know, trade deadline deals don't have to go down on trade deadline day. And it's looking like a week ahead of time, teams are giddying up. The Minnesota Wild acquire Gustav Nyquist again, this time for a second round pick in 2026. Now, if saying the Minnesota Wild acquired Gustav Nyquist again, if saying that confuses you, there's good reason, and I don't blame you. February 28th, 2023, almost exactly 2 years ago, the Wild acquired Nyquist from the Columbus Blue Jackets. And the difference between the two trades is a testament to how well the last 2 seasons have gone for Nyquist. With 10 goals and 22 points in 48 games with the Blue Jackets, the Wild acquired Nyquist for a 5th round pick. That 5th round pick turned into Melvin Strahl, a goalie prospect for the Blue Jackets, currently playing in the USHL. Well, if I don't remember Nyquist on the Wild, that means he must have been forgettable. Wrong! He played 3 regular season games with the Wild. Oh. In those 3 games, he had a goal and 4 assists for 5 points. Yeah. How'd he do in the playoffs? Well, he only played 6 games, but he had 5 assists. Last season, with the Nashville Predators, Nyquist blew the doors off of basically all his career highs. Career high in assists with 52. His career high before that was 36. And 75 points. His career high before that was 54. The human embodiment of turning back the clock. He's 35. You're not supposed to have career highs this deep into your career, but Nyquist did. Has this year gone that well for Nyquist? 9 goals, 12 assists, 21 points in 57 games, and a -20. Huge asterisk on all those stats I just mentioned. He's on the Preds. He was on last year's Preds, who were really, really good. And he did really, really good. This year's Preds are really, really bad. So his numbers are really, really bad. If you're wondering whether or not to care about the -20 that Nyquist had on this year's Predators, Philip Forsberg's a -16, Ryan O'Reilly's a -19, Jonathan Marchessault is also a -20, Steven Stamkos is a -23, and their worst player, an absolute bum, most people call him that, Roman Josi, -26. I think we can just crumple that stat up and throw it over our shoulder. The Preds don't have a point-a-game player, like a single one. Their leading goal scorer is Philip Forsberg, obvious, with 22 goals. Not as obvious. The only 9 goals that Nyquist has actually ties him for 6th on the Preds. And the guys he's behind are pretty obvious. Philip Forsberg, Jonathan Marchessault, Steven Stamkos, Ryan O'Reilly, Tommy Novak. That's where you get into, oh, I thought he might have had more goals than those guys. But that's it. It's a testament to how good Nyquist has been over the last couple of years that in 2023, he was only worth a 5th rounder, and this year, he garners a 2nd round pick. Now, weird player if you go back and look at his career. He peaked way too early. During the 2013-14 season, his first full season with the Red Wings, and I hesitate to call it full, he only played 57 games, but he had what is still his career high in goals with 28. He was a monster. It looked like he was going to be a perennial 40-goal scorer, at least 30-goal scorer. Over a decade later, he's still in the league, but he doesn't have a 30-goal season under his belt. It's wild. Hey, I didn't even mean Minnesota. I'm sorry. The 23 goals he had last season was Nyquist's first 20-plus goal season since 17-18 in Detroit. 841 career games played, plus another 77 in the Stanley Cup playoffs. This guy's got experience. Over his career, his goal scoring disappears in the playoffs, which no one in Minnesota is going to want to hear. In 77 games, he's only got 6 goals. His playmaking usually takes quite the jump. When the Blue Jackets made the playoffs in the weird COVID bubble, Nyquist only had 2 assists and no goals in 10 games. That kind of skews his stats. That's obviously a bad playoff run. The one before that, he had 1 goal in 20 games, but 10 assists, so 11 points, over half a point a game player. Yeah, I'd take that on my team. The playoff run with Minnesota I was talking about, 5 points in 6 games. Good. Last year in Nashville, a goal and 3 assists for 4 points in 6 games. Good. Overall, I think this is a positive for Minnesota. Now, if they don't get Kirill Kaprizov back, it's going to be a problem. I think it's best to look at this trade as one move, which is what it literally is, but you know what I mean. It's help for the Wild now, but the biggest acquisitions the Wild will get down the stretch and into the playoffs are guys who are already members of the Minnesota Wild. Puckpedia has the outlook. Thank you to Puckpedia for reminding me. To Minnesota, they get Gustav Nyquist at $3.185 million, 50% retained, and Nashville gets the 2026 second. So Minnesota only adds $1.593 million in AAV. So a little less than 1.6. That's nothing. And that also contributes to the value being a second round pick. Oh, you want me to retain? Sure, but it's going to cost. I've been critical of Nashville this season, but look at them to try to weaponize their cap space at this deadline. From Puckpedia, after acquiring Nyquist at a $1.59 million cap hit, the Minnesota Wild have $6.6 million in cap space remaining in LTIR. On LTIR is Kirill Kaprizov, and on IR is Joel Eriksson Ek. If both players were back prior to the end of the season, Minnesota would need to clear $2.4 million in annual cap hit. They could send 3 players down. The beginning, middle, and end of the Minnesota Wild right now is if they don't get their big guys back. Joel Eriksson Ek is pretty, he's a really underrated player. But Kirill Kaprizov is a top 10 player in the world. If they don't get him back, their chances of doing much of anything go down pretty significantly. I don't think I'm being unfair. But the Wild have done so well this season, even though they've lost 3 straight, you have to try. They're currently 3rd place in the Central Division. If the playoffs started today, they'd be playing Dallas. That is a tough matchup. Now, because they're 3rd, who's the wild card team? Oh, it's Colorado. Could Minnesota end up playing Colorado? Less likely. What's more likely to happen is Colorado jumps up, kicks Minnesota down. Minnesota is the top wild card team, and then they're playing one of Vegas or Edmonton. So it's not guaranteed. There's a bunch of games left, but the 3 teams that the Wild are most likely to play in the playoffs in the first round are Dallas, Vegas, and I already forgot. Edmonton! There you go! Oh my god, all 3 of those are terrible. Listen, this isn't exactly a cup or bust season for the Minnesota Wild. They got a lot of moving parts, and they got a young, talented team. But even fully healthy, I think an improvement to their scoring depth would be the wise decision. Wild are better today than they were yesterday, and that's a good thing. Now, before we wrap things up, let's take a quick look at the Nashville Predators draft outlook. They have a couple picks. According to Puckpedia, they have 3 first-round picks at this year's draft. 2 second-round picks, a 3rd, a 4th, a 5th, 2 6th, no 7th. Then next year, where they acquired the second rounder, they have a 1st, 2 seconds, a 3rd, a 4th, a 5th, no 6th, and a 7th. And even 3 drafts from now, that's 2027, they have a 1st, a 2nd, 2 3rds, 2 4ths, a 5th, a 6th, a 7th. If you look at this year as a blip on the radar for the Nashville Predators, and it might be, they were really good last year and they completely stink this year, and a lot of people didn't expect them to completely stink. If this is a blip on the radar, are they gonna be active? That, or they're gonna draft every player available. More likely they trade a few of them. So, what do you think of this trade? Leave a comment in the comment box down below, but for now, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends SDPN is the place to be. It's silly season, baby.